The Alpha Sessions.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Alpha Sessions. This week I'm with Corinna Jane.
Hello everyone, hi. Well, thank you for having me here.
No, thanks for coming in. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really embracing the spring weather now. I really feel like it's been an extremely long winter. It's felt depressing. And actually that whole new spring vibe has given me a real new lease of life. It really feels like that, right, what's next kind of vibe.
Good. This is good. We need that energy because, it has felt like a really long winter. Now, we have a lot to talk about to get through because I feel like you've done a lot of different stuff. You do presenting and you've done your travel vlog and stuff like that. And then you're doing your music, obviously, which you're here to talk about. You've released quite a lot as well. Since like 2010? It was like a really early release.
Yeah, like baby Corinna. Yeah.
How do you feel like between then and now? Obviously, a lot's changed. But with your most recent stuff, how do you feel you've changed over the years?
I think fundamentally I'm still the same girl inside. For me it's always about, the classic thing of storytelling, things that are going on in my life and being melodic. And, I've always had, in my mind, a bit of a, I've got the piano driven stuff. There's always been a bit of a pop rock edge to it, or sometimes it's a bit folky, sometimes it gets a bit more electronic. There's all sorts of elements to it. I think what's probably changed in some ways is when you're younger, you're trying to be as experimental, as unique, as interesting as possible, as quirky as possible. You don't want to be like anything else. You don't want to use the mundane chord structures that everyone uses. No, I'm going to make it really complicated. And as you get older, you start to realize that being complicated doesn't actually equate to better. Being more simple is actually more difficult. And so I suppose as I get older, I'm still quite quirky naturally, so that quirkiness will come out. But I think the approaching songwriting, approaching music from a much more simple perspective actually is more liberating, and sometimes I think can create better results as well.
Simple and effective.
Yeah.
That's the way forward. I was going to say, and you can take this however, but I was going to say you remind me of Kate Bush in your structuring. I don't know, the way it sounds, listening through lots of different stuff, because she evolved quite a lot and everything was influenced by a lot of different forms of music and creativity. And that's what it reminded me of.
I really like it when people say that because it's such a big compliment. And I feel, there's definitely the timbres in my voice kind of reach that sort of thing. And I get a lot of like Tori Amos comparisons as well. And I think, girl at the piano going into like... what's what I'm looking for? Like and undulating into the higher range and stuff like that. It naturally reminds people of that kind of thing. And I think that quirkiness, that desire to be a little bit more experimental definitely resides in me. But I think I also have this other side to me, which is like looking at the kind of the Alanis Morissettes of the world and that kind of thing, and the 90s and noughties kind of girl-driven sort of singer-songwriter pop rock vibe is also. So I try and bridge the gaps between these two different sides to me, really. There's the quirky one and the pop one. They try and come together.
Is there like an ultimate place you're working towards in terms of genre or the kind of artist you want to be? I know that's a very broad question, but like some people will just evolve however they evolve and they don't think about it. Or do you have like an end point? Do you have a goal you want to reach in terms of your sound?
Yeah, this is the thing. I've been asking I've been asking myself that question for years, and many people ask me that question, what are you exactly, who are you? And I think sometimes in the music industry that's been quite problematic because we've had a phase where people have been pushing everyone to more electronic sounds, more dancey sounds, and I've done a few dance records, and that isn't... It's fun to do as an experimental thing or a featured artist thing or have fun with different genres, but it's fundamentally not really me. So I've always been sort of pushing to do my own thing. And I'm a bit more free with these things right now. Like this, I've got this track that's going to come out quite soon called The Storm, and the producer, a guy called Lucy Wroe, and he's a really fantastic new producer on the scene, is doing dance records that are doing really well. It's almost like he's given me a slightly electronic sound to something that I always considered quite... more like a Florence and the Machine sort of vibe, this particular track. And I think I've had to be a bit more open, actually, to experimenting. Otherwise, you stay stuck and you don't really evolve, or you try and consistently push a certain sound onto people because you think that's what people are going to like. And actually, to liberate myself is a good thing. But I haven't actually answered the question that you asked, which is, I think, ultimately, I want to be, known as someone who is fundamentally a good singer-songwriter who writes good melodies and good lyrics and has I would hope a distinctive voice, and the production simply raises that. I think sonically I like the organic instruments. I've always liked that feeling, at least, of there's been musicians in the room playing together. But I'm also far more open than I used to be. I mean, far more open. I used to be such a purist about adding in electronic elements or, programming things. Because if you have an idea in your head, and it's going to sound good, then why the hell not? There's no point in being such a purist either if something's going to sound good.
Yeah, and I feel like if you have a lot of influences, it does naturally make you more interesting as well. And if you're open to that, it's good to be open. But people do naturally develop from a point of being, like you said, purist. It's an interesting way to put it, actually. But do you think you have a lot of cultural influences that come into your music, like from growing up in you weren't from the UK? We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very European background. So I was born in Germany. My mother, she was French. My father's British. So I grew up with 3 languages around me. I'd say English has always been my main language, although there was a time when I was little when I think German took over. And then when I came to England, that quickly sort of changed. I mean, all these cultural influences, I think they're very unconscious, though.
Yeah.
People will say to me sometimes, oh, that's quite European what you did. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? Because, European's so broad as well, like to Americans, for example, oh my God, you're from Europe? And it's like, Europe's just everything. It's just like everything is just Europe. There's no like differentiation between France, Germany, Spain, Italy. It's that kind of thing. And the Brits can be guilty of that as well a little bit, because it's such a broad kind of culture there. But I understand what they mean to a certain extent, where in some of the stuff I've done, it might not sound overtly British, but there's some things I've done that sound very British. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't think I've had a real moment where I'm specifically trying to emulate this particular cultural thing that's happened in my life. These things will be very unconscious with me, just whatever I've been absorbing throughout childhood or, my young adult life.
And you did start early as well, playing piano, if I'm right. And I guess that's the same kind of thing. If you pick something up from an early age and you play, did you play more classical music, or were you always playing more contemporary? I went and did all the classical, training with all the grades and everything else. But for me, my journey with the piano began before I started taking lessons. My father would always be the one playing piano around the house, and we'd have little sing-songs and people would come over, and we were doing the pop songs, and MTV was constantly on in the house, and I got very obsessed with MTV and constantly obsessed with pop songs. Like a lot of my friends and people close to me will tell me that I've got this freakish memory for when songs came out and whether they got to #1 and all this kind of stuff, because I was just consuming MTV. So what I would do is I'd go to the piano and I'd try and pick songs out by ear that I was hearing, whether my father was playing those things or whether I was, picking this up from the radio or MTV. So I started to pick things out by ear. And so when I got to 5 years old, my mother said, okay, it's time to take you to some piano lessons. And there were group piano lessons. There was a Yamaha school in my local small market town of Minden in Germany. I know, and it's quite unusual. You don't really find Yamaha schools like that anymore, where you have a classroom, actually. It's quite an unusual concept. Classroom of about 20, maybe less, maybe like 15 sort of 6-year-olds that are all playing the piano together. It's probably hell on earth for the parents that are there. I would not want to actually be in that room at this age, because everyone's going, boop, 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 boop on the piano, and it's like, oh my God. And we'd have sing-songs, and I think my teacher at the time, she recognised that I could sing already when I was little, but I was focused on the piano. And then, as things progressed, I started trying to compose things when I was 6, and it was quite a miserable thing I composed when I was 6. It was like a song called Rainy Afternoon, and I was watching a documentary on TV about somebody playing the piano, and I wanted to copy that, so I went and did that, and it was obviously my parents, my grandparents, like, oh my God, like, got excited. I just carried on that way. I've always liked to just work things out by myself, just like to just go to the piano and pick it out by ear or make stuff up. So although I did all the grades and all the classical stuff, I didn't have much patience for just, sitting there and doing all the scales and blah, blah, blah. It's just as I get older that I really appreciate the fact that I did piano lessons and went through all the grades and did my scales, because I will be able to play piano like I do. A lot of people do come from that kind of background, and I think they don't realise how much it affects them in the way they view music and create music and stuff. But MTV is an interesting one, because I don't think there's anything like that anymore. I mean, I guess the social media side of things, watching people's music come up on your TikTok might be an equivalent, but do you think that is a completely lost way of finding and viewing music, MTV?
Yes.
Is there anything that's replaced that?
No, I don't think. I mean, and the thing is, actually, this answers a a broader question really about how culture has evolved. There's a really sort of well-known music blogger called Bob Lefsetz who writes these blogs pretty much every day. I think this guy's a retired man. He's just got too much time in his hands. He writes these blogs, but he's an ex-music lawyer. So he understands the culture really well. And he always talks about how in the old days, we had a thing called like a monoculture. So we would all gravitate towards the same media outlets, whether it was watching Top of the Pops on a Saturday night, whether it was, listening to the radio, MTV, all these different things. Or even like the baby boomer generation, the transistor radios, listening to pirate radio stations. We just don't have that anymore. So people don't gravitate towards the same stuff. So that's beautiful where like the likes of you and I can go and release music and we can create our own audiences. But I think what we are missing is that feeling of like music's bringing us together and the pop culture actually captures its zeitgeist. When we look at different decades, different eras, we always relate to the music that came out at the time, the particular artists. And it really informs our memories and it informs what we did or who we spent time with or how we dressed or all these different things that are imaginative and creative and important actually to our own sort of development. And of course these days, things like Instagram and TikTok with people's reels and stuff and things going viral, there is still like a culture that brings people together, but it is very sparse. And I do think we lose that element of, even with television, it's Saturday night, everyone's going to watch ITV or something or BBC and there's blind dates on or, even the X Factor and all these things where it was these things that brought people together and gave them a talking point. So I think we have lost that. And I don't think MTV is replaceable. And we don't appreciate music in the same way. I used to go, even, I'm still just about old enough to remember as a teenager going into record stores and buying a CD. And that particular album would inform my memories for the next few months. And I just don't think we have that anymore. And I think it's really sad.
The people don't value it in the same way, maybe, because everybody's got this very individualist culture because you are on your own phone and everything's like tailored to you. So it's a good way of thinking about it, that people were sort of collectively listening to one thing or watching MTV all at the same time and knowing that everyone was doing that. I think that's a good thing about radio as well, which is amazing that we're doing this still. I think this is a good network. Do you think all of those changes have informed the way that you release music in more of like on the business side of things rather than the creative? Do you think it's affected the way you put your music out there? Do you think about it still in the old world?
Yeah, I've had lots of internal battles about that, because the thing is, you can complain as much as you like about how things aren't like the old world or the same, and you can rant and rave, that the consumer's not going to listen to your album now or whatever, or it's not fair, like such and such has gone by. You can do all of that, but if you can't beat them, you join them. So there's two things that have happened to me. I'm still ambitious about what I want to create, but I've also started to try, at least, I haven't mastered this quite yet, to let go a little bit, let go, because if you start to constantly construct ways of going viral, you will lose that creativity, you will lose that spark, and you will just kill your sanity in the process of it. And so then you have to come back to, like, I have a little slight aside, which is what I do anyway, but for example, one of my best friends, she's a painter, and at the weekend I saw her and she was talking about the thing she loves to do most in the world is painting, but she's done all these different things in the artistic world, but she's actually feels like she's not really doing the very thing she loves the most, which is painting. But she's too scared actually to kind of go back to it properly, because she's scared she's going to disappoint herself, because she wants the next piece to obviously subconsciously be a masterpiece. I said to her the same thing with songwriting. Sometimes I get scared of writing a song because I feel like it's got to be the best thing, because it's then going to launch me, it's going to go viral. And it's not like that. Whereas if I picked up the paintbrush and painted, which I've done occasionally, I don't care about the result. I don't care about the outcome. All I want to do is paint something that I'm enjoying and I'm liking, and because it doesn't mean anything. And of course, you can't switch that off completely as a songwriter, but you have to get to that point, because otherwise you just stop creating and then just part of your soul dies. So you have to just remember. But going back to your question about releasing things, I think I've stopped trying to work out algorithms or what the strategy is. You just put stuff out there, keep posting things, and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I am as free as the next man on the train, bound to the rails along the tracks of our own lives. He utters not a single word, but I hear him all the same. His vacant look depicts the words portraying his own plight. If there is one thing we share, it's our enduring sense of loneliness, our willingness to admit that we have but one care, to alleviate the troubled thoughts, to mediate through the mind, and gain a sense of self whilst we roll on through the night. Hear the chugging of our hearts, feel the tugging of the memories that float their sorrow. Hold your gaze with me, and I'll pretend to know you well. Don't know if you can tell, there's an affinity between us. And as he looks up from his paper cup to assert that I'm still here, he graces me with a half smile whilst looking at the floor. And I ignore the call, the crackling speakers as the train halts at my stop. Sir, I don't wish to vacate my seat, let me say it now and more, 'cause that's just this one thing we want, to cease all the internal fuse, to release ourselves from solitude. One thing for which we long, to feel the joy of love again, to heal the hurt heart. So let's try to lose ourselves whilst we roll on through the night. Hear the chugging of our hearts, feel the tugging of the memories that float their sorrow. Hold your gaze with me, and I'll pretend to know you well. Don't know if you can tell, there's an affinity between us. Shall we savor this second, for the sun's about to reach the finish line? Would you hold me close like I've always been your friend? Remember me in time. Oh, whilst I wish to stay, I'll best be making my way. I am this free as I am this free as I am this free as roll on through the night. Hear the chugging of our hearts, feel the tugging of the memories that float their sorrow. Hold your gaze with me, and I'll pretend to know you well. Don't know if you can tell. Ooh, ooh, an affinity between us.
The Alpha Sessions.
I want to talk actually a little bit about the first song you played, which was The Train. How did that one feel? Because that was quite a while ago. That was from an EP back at, 2015-ish?
The Train actually is much older than that in terms of when I wrote the song. You know, I wrote the song maybe, like about 12 years ago or something, but I actually only really properly released it in 2019-ish, you know. And that song's really important to me on so many levels now, actually, because every artist, I think, has a few songs of theirs for some reason are the ones that end up being more special because of the memories of now tied into those particular songs and how they've affected other people who listen to those songs. So with The Train, for me, it was a song that came to me when I couldn't sleep one night, and it was really about loneliness and the idea that you could be in a room full of people like a train and still feel incredibly lonely, and so your mind wanders and starts to conjure up some kind of romance in your head. And I'd play this one at gigs for many years, and then I always had the idea for a video in my head. And how this music video, I have to talk about the music video because, I mean, one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about MTV was that I just love music videos. Mm-hmm. And I think it's almost like a lost art form because people don't have the patience anymore. But I think it's one of the most beautiful, wonderful, creative things. So I always had in my head this video for The Train. And in my wildest dreams, it would always be on like the Orient Express or something, you know. And I'd be dressed like the 1920s and some handsome man dressed in that way. And it would all be very cinematic and beautiful. Mm-hmm. Obviously, couldn't quite afford the Orient Express. So, but one thing I did is I always had this vision in my head, and I was going to plan with my friend AJ, who's got a company called Dawn Sky Films, and I sort of plug him for him, this particular video. And we were going to get funding to go and on like an old steam train in the UK. And basically my mother passed away in that time. And by the time I wanted to shoot a video, I couldn't be bothered with crowdfunding. I just said, let's just go to my local steam train, Northamptonshire. We'll just get a few of my friends. I'll do a bit of lip syncing. We'll make it look nice. I can't be bothered with the full story, the full narrative. And it's once I let go of that whole thing, the most magical, beautiful thing happened where I got the very video I wanted with zero effort. I put this advert out on Facebook. It got shared about 200 times locally. I had about 100 emails from local people who wanted to be on board my train. The train gave me the local train, it was called Lamport and Brampton Valley Way. They gave me the train for free for 2 days. My friend, the film director, he got 2 other people to join, gave up their time. And I was trying to source professional actors, but in the end, a friend of mine, Alejandro, who just looked the part, said, you can have the role if you want to. And he just looked like this sort of 1940s film star that had been like, you know, transported, if you like, back into this era. And then this is where the story takes a little bit of a sadder turn, but I had a friend called Tom, who was my biggest, oldest fans, and he offered to play the, as he called it, the fat train conductor. I think that's from like Thomas the Tank Engine. I said, that's no way of describing yourself. And he said, no, it's a character from Thomas the Tank Engine. I said, okay. And he became my train conductor, and he sourced his own costume. And we were there for 2 days shooting this beautiful video that I ended up, you know, editing myself. And with no money, and it looks like we spent about 10 grand on it, or more than that, actually, you know. And all these 60 people, local people, showed up with their dogs as well. And it looks like the most cinematic, expensive thing. And we didn't spend a single amount of money on it. And the reason why this song means so much more to me now is it was Tom's favourite song. And sadly, he passed away a few months ago. So every time I think of Tom, every time I think of the train, I always think of Tom and what it meant to him. And this particular video. And it was just before COVID broke out. So it was the last time everyone could actually be in the same space. So anyway, that was a bit of a long-winded.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, that defines it very well. It defines the song very well. And also, if you want to go and see the video, I assume it's out on YouTube.
Yes, yeah. I think it's my favourite music video I've done because it really is about bringing people together. And I think, you know, the song's so old to me, but you know, someone's come into my life really recently who really loves that song, you know, and they've kind of reminded me actually. I mean, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but they reminded me actually there's something about that song that seems to resonate on an emotional level with people. So yeah,
music videos, I think that's true. I love making music videos, but also if you can do them for low budget or no budget, and I think that's still possible, and people don't think that, because when you go to a company and you ask them for a quote, they give you like a quote for 3,000 just to hire them for the day or something. But it is possible, like, just to reach out. Is that like a turning point? You mentioned earlier that your mindset changed, you wanted to let go a bit more. Was that kind of a turning point after that experience that you decided, I need to just let things happen naturally?
Kind of. I mean, I think what happened was, because my mother passed away, which was like one of the worst things that could have happened, you start to kind of look at things a bit differently, and you start to, well, I wouldn't say I've totally mastered this, you know, because real life kicks in after a while, and then, you know, you can have learned all these lessons and you just have to remind yourself. But it did make me really see about the things I couldn't control. You know, I tried so hard to control everything all the time, but I couldn't control that. And so at that moment in time, I had to come back to also what's enjoyable in life. You know, why am I doing these things? Because it's fun. And so to let go is also about just embracing the fun in it all, you know? And so at that point, I think that was one of the turning points. But it doesn't mean to say I've mastered that. I've had loads of times since then where I've really wanted something to be hugely successful and didn't quite work out that way. So it's an ongoing battle, really.
It's a lifelong.
And I have to remind myself all the time, particularly right now, you know, where there's a lot of new things I'm doing or want to be doing, and I hope for it to become successful. But actually, in a way, I haven't given up on wanting success. I've just given up on the it's all or nothing kind of thing, you know.
It's just another Saturday like all the ones I know. So take a little wander down the city streets below. And I'll politely smile at those who choose to look my way. And I wonder if they notice I'm not quite myself today. And then a stranger passes by wearing familiar cologne, reminding me of sacred times I wasn't on my own. And the snapshots flicker in my mind, while the whole world seems to look the same as I'm searching for a deity, someone to take the blame. Perhaps I'll never know if there's a cause or a cure. So just pour me a glass of tomorrow. As I feel the cobbled surface of the path beneath my feet, I hear the distant laughter of kids playing in the street. And the melancholy fills my heart like an empty hall. I find some comfort in myself, recounting when I was small, as lovers walk by hand in hand, and a man is pleading with his girl to give his love another chance, reminder she's his world. Then I begin to feel the sting of a teardrop lurking in my eye, and I realize I'm holding on to love I wanna die. Perhaps I'll never know if he's the cause or the cure. So just pour me a glass of tomorrow. I say pour me a glass of tomorrow. And the irony of the drunk man who throughout the town will preach the meaning of the life we lead in schools they'll never teach. So shall I ask the universe to assure me with a sign, searching for those numbers when I look at the time? And I'll take my chance in a set of cards to see what my life will await. But I find myself reshuffling decks till I'm happy with my fate. You can rewrite the story, but the ending will still stay the same. And no matter where my life will go, I won't forget his name. Perhaps I'll never know if there's a cause or a cure. So just pour me a glass of tomorrow. I say pour me a glass of tomorrow. I say pour me a glass of tomorrow. I say pour me a glass of tomorrow. But I spend some time in solitude, I ponder on this life. I notice there's no right or wrong, just numbers on a dice. I'm old enough to know better, still young to make mistakes. But I'm thankful for the love I felt, if only for my heart's sake. Perhaps I'll never know if I'm the cause or the cure. So just pour me a glass. I say pour me a glass. I say pour me a glass of tomorrow.
The Alpha Sessions.
You do a lot of things, as I mentioned at the beginning. You're presenting, you're doing your vlogging, and do you just kind of like keeping the door open, and because you enjoy things and you want to keep enjoying things? Because some people will put their all into music because they think that they have to put 100% of their every day, and sometimes that can be exhausting, and it's unnatural, I think, to devote yourself to one craft all your life, and people do other things. So is music like your core, your main value, and then you just like to sort of dabble in other things?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think music and just performing in general. Like I obviously I love, creating is my main thing, but I love performing. The minute I'm in front of an audience performing, that's when I feel alive and everything seems to make sense to me. Like I think they talk about, someone was telling me yesterday about self-actualization, when you really feel like, okay, this is the core of me is performing. But presenting is also another way of performing. It's another form of expression. And I've always wanted to do presenting as well. It's always, I spent my childhood, and they say, the things you do as a child are actually the things that you probably should then end up doing when you're an adult. But I spent my childhood playing, doing all the music, like I was saying earlier. But my dad was following me around the house the whole time with a video camera everywhere I was going. So I was always naturally talking to cameras. So those are things I love to do. I love to engage and create stories. So music's a way of engaging, creating stories. So it's presenting. It's allowing people to engage their imagination and have a bit of escapism. And I need escapism because I can get very heavy in my head. I can get very anxious, very obsessed as well about things. And actually, when I put myself into those elements, I can get some kind of peace, and I can create something that to me feels like it's leaving some kind of legacy of sorts. But to go back to your question, I do need to do other things to keep things interesting. I do need to do other things to inspire myself. But there's also a thing where if you are good at different things, then why limit yourself, And I always wanted to do presenting, but I thought music would become first, and then presenting would be the sort of like a result of that, or like a thing that would come as a result of doing music as well. Like you see a lot of people who start out as musicians and they become presenters. But in the end, I kind of fell into it, and it just sort of grew. And then I taught myself video production so that I could do stuff for the presenting, and I could do my music videos so that I didn't have to rely on anyone. I'm a control freak. That I should have just answered that I'm a control freak with my creative stuff. Yeah.
But it's a good thing when you have all the abilities and you just sort of you open your own doors and you learn everything you need to learn, then you can rely on yourself, and that's a really good thing. Do you write alone as well, or are you working with other people?
I do write alone a lot, whether I'm doing my songs, or I've been doing some composing lately for just like small indie films and things like that. So writing alone is very different to me because that's usually the songs I didn't mean to write that came to me. I'm sure you have this as a songwriter. You're walking down the street, the melody hits you, you got to write something, right? But I love co-writing. I really, really love co-writing because I just love feeling that energy in the room where two people have got this beautiful music chemistry. And it creates something else. It creates something that you couldn't do on your own, they couldn't do on their own, and it's this beautiful fusion. I mean, we've seen it all across history, the Lennon McCartney thing, or this Bernie Taupin, Elton John. The whole thing of having two people come together. Or mention Alanis Morissette. Glenn Ballard was a producer that discovered her, and they wrote Jagged Little Pill, and that album's sensational. So I like to write with other people as well. Not done it for a while though. Maybe it's time.
Yeah, so what's coming up this year? What's in the works, sort of, in terms of releases or projects? Anything, really, that you're up to?
Well, I'm getting 2 songs mastered on Wednesday, so this is a good time to talk about those ones. So I have this song called The Storm, which is the one I mentioned earlier that I worked... there's a new producer called... I say new producer. I mean, there's like... new on the scene, a guy called Lucy Ryan, who approached me on Instagram, a really great producer, and he did add like an electronic element to this particular song and reworked it in a way that I couldn't have imagined myself. And so, I learning to like let go of the reins a little bit. So got that track getting mastered, going to release soon. And then I also have, and this is what I'm also so excited about, is I've started to get into production myself. So I've got a soundtrack for a new independent feature movie that's coming out next year called Hyde, which is a retelling of Jekyll and Hyde. And I've done the soundtrack. It's called Demons. And yeah, I mean, I just did the whole thing myself, did the whole orchestra arrangement, did the whole thing. And I've got my friend Luke Wood, who's always played guitar for me for all over the years, and has always recorded me as well when I was a teenager, because we've been friends for that long. And now we're actually doing this music together for the film. But he then mixed it, and I actually God, everyone's going to say these things about the latest thing they've done. I think it's one of the best things I've done is this track Demons. It's very haunting, it's very cinematic, it's a bit Bond-esque in some ways, I guess. But I'm just happy that I produced it. Like I'm now thinking actually I can also do that myself now. So I feel it's quite liberating as well to feel that I can take control of that as well.
Wow, that's an interesting thing to get into, doing scores, and it's a very niche thing to do. A lot of people, I imagine, would like to do that, but maybe feel like it's a massive job to take on.
Which is what I'm doing with my friend Luke. So
it'd be a good thing.
I like doing piano compositions, but I'm not so interested in you know, like you got big cinematic weird noises, and like that's not really my thing. But Luke's thing, so I'll just do all the melodic stuff, and he can do all, you know.
It's a good duo. It's a good combination.
Absolutely.
When you find that person you can work with. Well, we look forward to those singles and that film next year. Did you say Hyde coming out?
Yes.
Next year?
Well, no,
Or
it's probably
possibly?
later this year.
Oh,
but they're
okay.
trying to finish everything.
Yeah.
It's like
That's great. No, that sounds cool. Any gigs this year? Any big festivals?
Actually, no, I wasn't. I didn't book any festivals this year because I wasn't really sure where I'd be in the summer. Long, boring story. So no is the answer. I am doing I mean, by the time this goes out, it would have been in the past, but I've been doing quite a lot of these regular Pizza Express live gigs at the Piano Lounge. But yeah, no, I need to, when I figured out what I'm doing across the summer, I need to go and start, organising gigs again.
Well, there's a lot going on, and I feel like we're going to see a lot more of you.
I hope so.
So thanks for coming down, and thank you for our lovely chat.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Why do you look so bruised when it's me who's confused by all the lies that you spewed? You're a vulture who preys on those who look dismayed, and so you find nice things to say. But darling, don't you see it's too late? Show is over. The curtain call is near. Standing ovation, woman sensation. But now I see it clear. Haunting faces of you. Oh, whoa, oh, oh. You're a magnetic force towards the ones you scored, and yet you only fake remorse. You're a guru to the used, the helpless ones and the abused, but you're the only one you've got fooled. But darling, don't you see it's too late? Sure is over. The curtain call is near. Standing ovation, woman sensation. But now I see it clear. Haunting faces of you. Should do one I don't want none, 'cause you broke this thing we had in two, and now I finally got the truth. Won't fool me twice. I know your device in this sweet face fantasy. It's too late. Show is over. The curtain call is near. Standing ovation, woman sensation. But now I see it clear. It's too late. Show